Hello. Give it a few more minutes for the more people to join. Started here in like about two to 3 minutes. Hello. We're giving it a few more minutes for the rest of the crew to join, and then we will get started. Good to see you, Johari. Good to see you, Emily. Good to see you, Brian, Sami, Jerry, Jillian. Thank you for joining today. Right, so I think we can get going. Let's go ahead and kick things off and have some fun, because it will be fun.
Thank you. So, hello everyone. So, welcome to today's event, Architecting Microsoft Fabric Solution. My name is Effie Wambogo from Amli, and we are excited to have you with us. So, today we are diving into Microsoft Fabric architecture, focusing on how to build systems that are not only resilient but also scalable and adaptable to your organization growth. So, in our previous event, we discussed practical AI use cases, and today we are shifting to the core infrastructure that supports such technologies. And since this is live, we shall be sharing some visuals and even a short demo to give you a clearer picture of what Microsoft Fabric can do. So before we get started, let me introduce our company, Ambly. So Ambly is a leading consulting firm that specializes in data analytics, AI, and machine learning. So we empower organizations to take advantage of the full potential of their data by delivering tailored solutions, driving digital transformation, and fostering innovation. But please feel free to use the chat or Q&A feature to ask questions, and we shall answer them at the end. So without further ado, let's dive in to set the stage. So we have different speakers, and please to introduce our speaker who will start us off. Thank you. Leonard.
Yeah, sorry, I was on mute. Thank you, Effie, for that intro, and welcome everyone. So for us to be able to do this deep dive, we wanted to kind of paint a picture actually for one of our customers that we recently helped with architecting and actually delivering a solution in Microsoft Fabric. So what happened was we have one of the customers who is in healthcare, and this customer they've been in business forever, and they have a pretty large healthcare organization where they have I believe they have about 16 facilities. They do see about 160 patients, 160,000 patients, as well as about 80 physicians, staff of about 155 nurses, 250, 280 administrative staff. So it's a larger organization. And what happened was they reached out to us because they had an urgent request where they wanted to transform or get data quickly. So what happened was they had one of their resources, his name was Tyler, and Tyler had been with the organization for over 10 years. So throughout those 10 years, he had developed this workbook that was supporting the business. So if you think of it from everything that they used to do, whether it's their understanding their metrics, being able to understand their financial management processes, inventory tracking stuff, scheduling, all that. So they were getting the data from different sources, their EMR systems, they're getting data from their scheduling system, they're getting data from their laboratory systems, and just bringing all that data together in a worksheet because he was very proficient in Excel. And then he would transform that data, create these pivot tables, and then give them to different departments so that they can be able to deliver on what was expected. The management was also using these workbooks to be able to make decisions. And actually, the one that you're looking at here on the screen is actually one of their workbooks. So we've brought it out so that at least we can keep the data confidential. But this is one of the pieces that they used to do. So what Tyler would do is get that Excel, give it, transform the data, massage the data, make sure that the data is usable, and then give it to different departments so that they can be able to continue with their whatever their processes that they want to be able to deliver. Now, late last year, Tyler was due for retirement, and they did a very nice gesture of go away party. So this is all secondhand information that we received. And then around March, which is when this client reached out to us, they had an issue where now the Excel workbook stopped working. And the reason the Excel workbook stopped working is because after the transitioning of Tyler roles to somebody else, they ended up in a situation where this other resource was trying to reduce the size of this workbook because now it was becoming too large. When they would open it, it would take forever to open. So they were trying to transition it, or they were trying to make it a little bit smaller so that it can be consumable. But during that process, they ended up having a situation where they could no longer use the Excel workbook. And this is actually what they were getting, the error that they were getting, where there were linked tables or there were linked pivot tables within that workbook that were no longer there. So when they tried to refresh the data, they would get this error here where the linked workbooks were not there. So yes, they were able to immediately, or they were able to get it back to working by going back to a prior version and being able to restore it. But it brought up a good question of why are we so dependent on using an Excel workbook, whereas this data is all coming from systems that are within us that we can be able to actually pull data. So that's why we came into picture. And they wanted us now to be able to provide a solution where they could be able to be able to pull some of the data in real time, and then be able to pull other data based on different processes and pipelines, which is what we're going to look at today, how we delivered that solution. And then also be able to visualize that data so that they can, at the end of it, be able to have a Power BI report that they can be able to consume. So we're going to look at the entire solution of how we delivered this and in a timeline. So this happened around March of this year. By the time we got to around August, we already had a working solution for them, pulling data in different sources using Microsoft Fabric, and we're going to look at that architecture. So to deep dive into the solution, one of the key things that we did, which is very important, is first of all to figure out who the stakeholders are. So in this scenario, the stakeholders were actually the IT team, but what we wanted to do is to make sure that the solution that we do provide does reach to all other departments. So we had a meetup with other departments so that we can be able to extract information of what they would want to see, as well as what other data they would want to be able to bring to this environment. And then after that, after meeting with the stakeholders and creating a workable solution, then we went through the data discovery processes. So looking at their EMR systems, looking at their pharmacy systems, looking at their patient portals, the nurses' notes. They have an application that whenever their nurses go see different patients, they would put in their notes, and they wanted to bring that data live so that as the data was changing, they can be able to see that data rather than having to wait until the refresh happened. So this was one of the solutions that we had to provide. So that's how we initially started with the stakeholders, and then being able to do data discovery and creating a workable solution. And then after that, now we actually did a deep dive on implementation process. And to start off from the implementation perspective, I'm going to invite Dominic, who was very much involved in getting the solution going from data gathering and also building the pipelines. So Dominic, go ahead and walk us through how that process went.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Yeah, thanks, Leonard, for inviting me, and thank for that brief introduction to our one of the tasks we encountered a couple months ago. Yeah, this was a good challenge, and as you can imagine, all that you can see in Excel was handled by one person, one individual. I really applaud Mr. Taylor for doing that great job. Oh, by the way, my name is Dominic, and I'm a data engineer in Amley, and welcome. So what we did when we meet the stakeholders, we looked at what type of data they had to ingest. Now we need to understand what kind of data they had and their location. So once we met the stakeholders, we determined several locations, different locations of storage. They were storing their data, and they had different types of data. This was crucial, so we could be able to know which method we could be able to use on ingesting data into a lakehouse. So from what we corrected, we found, and as Leonard said earlier, there were data from electronic health records, we have lab information, we have pharmacy, there are records from accounting, there are records from vendors. So all these records or data we needed to ingest it, and it came in different forms and different formats. So it was a challenge, but we were up to it, and I'm really surprised. I was surprised how Taylor was able to gather all this information from different storage facilities into his database and give this report. So what we did, first of all, determining where the data was. There was data in the cloud. There was data in the storage in their databases, and also there was data in the Excel. And on top of that, there was data coming in from NASIS, that's a streaming live stream. So to determine on all this, Microsoft Fabric gives us a good methods, ways of ingesting data. And now to determine which from what you see on the screen, all these were different types of sources where the data was stored. So we had to find which method is good for every storage. Now, for data that was in their database, that which was straight, we used the pipelines to get our data from the customer database into a lakehouse altogether. And pipelines are one of the methods of ingesting data into a lakehouse, because data, once you get into their database, you can be able to ingest the data using transform it, do some ETL, the ones which needs a ETL. We will also be able to reschedule, also schedule, do the patch load without loading the whole data every day. So you can reschedule using the pipeline. And also the data which was on the cloud from the lab information, that most of it we used we have another method called data flow chain 2. That's the one we use to get data from the cloud. And for it didn't need a lot of transformation. and is able to reschedule and do incremental loading and view transformation on that. Also, we had data that was streaming that like the NAS nodes, we need that data to be on, to be received to the pharmacy, and also the doctors notes and nurses in the pharmacy to get all those information at the same time. And this we used the event hub to stream this data into our lakehouse, and that enables to create reports immediately at a real time, in a real time manner. And also the data which was in Excel that was straightforward, we used it what we call upload. The upload is just the data which is right there. You can there's a feature we have in Microsoft Fabric where we can upload data straight from our local system, and also the data they had in SharePoint, we were able to upload it using the upload method. And they had data from the vendors, which the fire data, which had a lot of work needed to be done. We used the notebooks. The notebook is one another method which can simplify or edit or transform data from at a really high level into the data which can be used, so that we are able to use in the lakehouse. So we use the notebooks. That's one feature or method in Microsoft Fabric that gave us those capabilities of transforming the really complicated data that needed a lot of transformation. And also we had some another new feature in ingesting data, which is shortcuts. There's some data, the data which was stored in data. I'm sorry, Azure data storage as a gentle. I'm sorry, it does storage that you used. So that one used shortcuts because we didn't need to get this data, copy the whole data, or unload this data. We had to use the shortcuts to access this data to ingest it to our lakehouse. And lastly, the stream real-time ingestion that we use the Event Hub. I think I talked it earlier, that we were able to use Event Hubs to ingest the real-time data from the nurses nodes and doctor nodes, and also from the pharmacy. These were the most methods that we used to ingest our data into Lakehouse, and they were really effective. Then we had our data engineers in the warehouse to build the lake houses and data warehouses. And in that, I will introduce to you one of our engineers, that is Martin, to take you through how he did he built the lake house and the warehouse medallion. Next, Martin, please, can you take us through?
Thank you so much, Dominic, for handling that well. Now, my name is Martin Wambui. I'm a data and machine learning engineer. And in the journey of Vital Medical Group, when they approached us with a big workbook of 1.4 GB, it was like a giant book, and it had been maintained for nearly 2 decades. And at this, it was very important for the operation, but by the time they were coming to us, it was not viable. So to address this, we designed a solution rooted in the Mendelian Lakehouse architecture, ensuring scalability, reliability, and ease of maintenance. So the keyword here is the Mendelian Lakehouse architecture. I'll first of all introduce what is a Mendelian Lakehouse architecture. It is a modern data design pattern that organizes data into progressive layers called bronze, silver, and gold. These wordings come from when one's wins athlete in, for example, an Olympic, they are given, number one is given a gold, number two a silver, and number three a bronze. That's where the word comes from, the Mendarian architecture. So each layer improves the quality, structure, and usability of the data, making it easier to drive analytics and business intelligence. This approach is especially beneficial in scenarios where data integrity, scalability, and efficient processing are critical. So at this core, the Mendarian architecture, it emphasizes on multi-layered approach to create a single source of truth for enterprise data. By leveraging this design, organization can ensure their data meets principle of asset, that is atomicity, consistency, and isolation and durability at every stage of the data. It's often referred as multi-hop architecture because data is processed incrementally with each hop through the layers, refining it further. And as I said, we have 3 layers, that is gold, bronze, and silver. And the first thing we did is to create the bronze layer. The bronze layer is where when the data is ingested from the event house pipelines and data flow, is where the data lags. We give it to a bronze layer. In this layer, we store raw data and validated data and ensuring that the data remains as it is. So in this layer, we maintain the historical data. We do minimal data validations, and the schema is not that flexible. And also we retain the historical data. This layer serves as the foundation of ingesting stream from diverse operation stream, maintaining their original format. The table structures mirrored the source systems. The format of the data is the same as it was in the original format. We don't change the format in this layer. So the only thing that change we add in this is the loading time and also the process ID, so that you can know when the data was loaded to the layer. So after that, we created the silver layer. The silver layer now is different from the bronze layer, because here we do the data validation and also we do data cleaning. And we also change some of the structure of the data. And in this layer, we store data in different format. We store data in Delta tables and Parquet files. The reason why we store data in Delta tables here and Parquet files is because they have a high efficiency in speed, and also they make them suitable for analytics and preparing data for downstream processing. Because when the data is stored in Parquet files and Delta formats, there's a high speed in when you are reading the data. So in this case, we did several transformation where we removed the duplicate and null values. Also, we standardized the data types for like patient demographic and billing records. And also we normalized complex schemas into consumable tables that you can be able to consume. And also we combine multiple sources into a unified enterprise view. Some of the thing we did is joining like patient records with billing data to enable trade analysis, and also the nurses notes, which were standardized and structured in a meaningful fields, making it easier for health staff to access the insight. So in this case, the layers, we had transformed the data, and now in this case, you could be able to use the data in different cases. But to make that data more available for a real-time analytics, now we go to the gold layer. In the gold layer, it's designed to provide analytics-ready data for decision-making tailored to the needs of different business functions. For example, in this case, we did like customer spending metrics like average and total spend per patient. And also we created staff efficiency and service line performance, and also trade in patient outcomes and resource utilization. In this case, the data was ready to enable the decision makers, and also from this case now we created an endpoint so that the data can be read from different objects in the fabric. And also we created what we call semantic model that connected to the Power BI so that we can create a report to the end users. So as I said, the data in the gold layer and silver layer is stored as delta, tables, and Parquet format to increase the processing speed. So in this case, in the gold layer, since it's the end users, you can also create multiple and different gold layer for the data. For example, you can do like a gold layer for pharmacies to see only the data that is related to their pharmacy side, to make sure that it's specialized to the use of each group. So by doing this, we replaced the aging health ops with a modern scalable Medallion Lakehouse architecture, which ensured that the vital medical group is prepared for their current and future challenges. So the next step after this was leveraging this foundation to build AI-powered solution that will further revolutionize their operation. So by doing that, we make sure that there was no need of like someone like the guy who was handling the Excel file. We don't need like someone who is special with skills to handle the platform. It's easily scalable and it's easy to use and can be used to different business users, and it's very easy to even maintain. And that's how we created the Medallion Lakehouse architecture for the Vital Medical Group. Thank you.
Thank you, Martin. That was insightful. So, you mentioned lakehouse, but I also understand there's the concept of warehouse. What's the difference and where do each fit?
Okay, thank you, Effie, for that question. People confuse between a data warehouse and lakehouse. In Fabric, the data warehouse and lakehouse are just two different types of data storage that works together to support data management and analysis. The data warehouse is a system where the data is stored in a structured format, and it's primarily used by SQL developers, and it's suited well for performing the queries. So the point is that the data is structured. In Lakehouse platform, the data can handle structured, semi-structured, and unstructured data, and can be used by various people like data engineers, data scientists, and everyone. So the key difference between warehouse and lakehouse is the data structures. Like a warehouse you can only store structured data, but a lakehouse you can store every type of data. And that's why here we created a lakehouse, because we are collecting data from different sources. That notes the patient records from the pharmacy records, and it was very suitable in this case. Thank you. I hope the question is well handled.
Yeah, it's well answered. Thank you. So let's hear from our next speaker, Martin, who will be talking about data orchestration. Welcome, Martin.
Thank you, Effie, and thank you, Leonard, Dominic, and Martin for setting the stage. So all along, we're explaining how we came to turn Vital Medical Group's nightmare into a scalable and secure solution. So I'm going to tackle the data orchestration bit. And when you talk of data orchestration, it's not just about automating and coordinating the data movement across systems. It also ensures that the right data gets to the right place at the right time. So yeah, my name is Martin Muchuki. Here at AMLI, I'm a data and AI engineer. Yeah, and let's continue. So Leonard set the pace and told us about the challenge that Vital Medical Group had. There are major pain points were that they had operational inefficiency, and as well, they had the data vulnerability aspect. So 1.4 GB Excel workbook had all the key operations. It had the financial data, it had patient records, staff schedules, and it wasn't secure. So sharing this across departments meant these manual file transfers, emails, and yeah, this shows that there was little to no control over who accesses some information. So yeah, there was just a data breach that was in waiting. So now how did we come in to address both the operational and security challenges? Our previous speakers have mentioned, Dominic mentioned that we started with assessing the data landscape. So for this, we mapped the data sources from financial systems to patient management tools. So mapping now gave us a complete picture of where the sensitive information was and how it was being accessed. And then we then transitioned to building a secure and centralized platform, which previous speaker Martin mentioned. And this was now using a cloud-based platform. So we centralized the data in a repository with strict access control. So this now ensured that only authorized personnel could view or modify specific data sets. And then we automated and secured the workflows. So we did this through real-time automation and scheduling. So we could use event-driven triggers, schedule pipelines. All these are in the Azure Data Factory. An example being inventory data would be ingested daily at 2 a.m. And then we could have staff schedules being processed in near real time when updates were being made in the HR system. So such automation eliminated the manual workflows. So we were given feedback that we were able to reduce the processing time by up to 70%. So that way we did this was now enabling scalability. Remember, it's a big healthcare organization, and they are still growing and serving more patients and customers, and therefore the Excel could not handle the growing need for a scalable solution. So we used distributed processing. Now this by leveraging Spark to process parallel processing of large data sets, for example, patient records. And then we could do data versioning. So this is now using Delta Lake to track changes and ensure that we have data consistency. Yeah, and then since security was a key factor, we implemented the Azure role-based access control to manage permissions. For example, we give the physicians now access to read-only access to patient records, and then the finance team could view the financial data, and then now administrators could now manage the scheduling. So then Fabric enable us to continue with monitoring and governance. This is through Azure Monitor and Log Analytics. So even currently, pipeline performance and failures are monitored in real time. We have custom alerts that notify the team in case there's an anomaly, such as maybe an unusual high processing time or an unauthorized access attempt. And then as with a secure system, we have all the data operations being logged for auditing and compliance to ensure that it aligns with regulations, and in this case for them, the healthcare regulations. So basically the architecture now involve now the data sources, the ingestion bit, the processing, storage, access, and security. And for access, we have Power BI dashboards for visualization, and we even went ahead to have them with APIs for custom applications. So what was the outcome of all this? In automation, like I mentioned, we were able to eliminate the manual processes, and this now reduced the operational overhead by up to 70%. And then now the system they have currently is able to handle growing patient volumes without any hitch. And then security is being ensured such that sensitive data is protected. We have the role-based access control and the monitoring. And because of the visualization part of our BI, they're able to access data in real time, and this now empowers the different departments to make informed decisions. So the data orchestration and the whole architecting Fabric solution isn't just for a healthcare field. Based whether you're in a different industry, automating and coordinating data movement will ensure that you also get the operational efficiency, and it also ensures that security, compliance, and scalability are taken care of. So I'm going to hand it over to Leonard, who will do a show and tell of now the architecture we built for them. And as well, he'll mention about the licenses you need for such a solution. So yeah, we normally say that data is powerful, but now orchestrated and secure data becomes transformational. Yeah, welcome, Leonard.
Thank you so much, Martin, and thank you, team, for putting this together. Before I jump into a demo to show how we go from point A to Z, because it was a full, complete solution, do we have any question? I think there's a question from one of the team members. Let me see here. We have a question from Johari. Can you share performance of Fabric in Teams in terms of speed? Yes, definitely you can. And what, Johari, that's a good question. One of the things that you can actually be able to do is Fabric does give you a dashboard that you can be able to measure the performance of how even the consumption itself, because, and we'll talk about licensing in a little bit. One of the key things about Fabric licensing is that it's all based on consumption based. So you are able to also see what consumption your organization is using, so that you can know whether you adjust up or down. And when you talk about adjusting up or down, the other thing that's worth noting is that, let's say, for instance, we have layers. We start with F2, F4, F6, and so forth and so on, all the way to F2048. That's the highest that you can be able to go. So let's say, for instance, the organization here purchases F64, and then we realize that it's not really meeting our needs. And then somewhere within the year, let's say around, if you go with the reservation, because you also have the ability to either reserve the capacity, or you can be able to do pay as you go, right? Which is hourly, it's really hourly consumption with the full range of amount. If you do the reserved, and we'll talk about licensing more here in just a moment. If you do the reserved part of it, where you can be able to reserve the capacity to for a year, you can either do a year or 2 years or 3 years. That's what Microsoft allows us to be able to do. If you do that reservation there, and you consume more than what you have reserved, what Microsoft will do is they will bump you up to the next tier, and then whatever you have, the overage will be charged based on the next year. So based on the next tier. So yes, you do have a way for you to be able to monitor performance, monitor consumption, monitor usability, so that you can be able to make an informed decision. And what we tell our customers when we introduce this process here, and even for the Vital Care Group here, what we had to do is, first of all, let's go ahead and jump into this with trial version, because the trial version does give you that ability to do almost a proof of concept, so that you can be able to see what level of consumption you do have within the organization. And then after that, now we can start transitioning to a paid Fabric capacity. And at that point, we do have a better idea of what your consumption is. And then, and a little bit more here on licensing. Yesterday, actually, I got an email from Microsoft indicating that they are restructuring the way we do the Fabric licensing, since we're one of the partners for them. So we get these early releases of kind of knowing what's coming before it gets to the customers. So it's actually something that I don't know if any of our team members have had a chance to look at it yet. I got it late last night. So I haven't had a chance to review it to see what they've changed from licensing, not licensing, but how you be able to tell what level of licenses you do have. The one that we had prior to this one was an Excel workbook that they actually gave us, which was very cumbersome too, because you have to determine different experience. And when we talk about experiences, when you have like your data scientist, your data engineers, you have your analyst, all those are different experiences that you need to consider how you go about licensing. So that's a little bit on licensing. Let me go ahead and jump on the demo. Hopefully I was able to answer that question. And as other questions come, panel, don't hesitate to either stop me or be able to respond to it through chat. All right, so what we have here is this organization, when they approached us, we ended up having to implement that medallion architecture, as Martin was mentioning there. And then, of course, the data orchestration was one of the key things. But for us to be able to get from point A to point Z, we needed, first of all, to identify where the data is coming. Now, once we identify where the data is coming, as Dominic walked us through, he was heavily involved in trying to figure out all the data sources, and I think he's one of the best when it comes to data validation, because he leaves no stone unturned. So that allows us to be able to figure out exactly what all the data that we do have, and then the rest of the team, beyond what you're seeing here in the panel, there's other folks behind the scene that also helped, so that we can be able to get this in a very fast and timely fashion, and also make sure that we have it. Now, the one that I'm showing here is not the actual client environment. This is actually a replica of almost what the client had. And I wanted, first of all, to show what we put together for them. These different things that the team did talk about, like for instance, shortcuts. We have the ability to do mirrors. We have all those concepts. I'm gonna talk about them here in just a short moment. So one of the pieces that we had was, we have high volume data, and then we have the low volume data. The high volume data is data that was actually critical for them. Data like, for instance, pharmacy, they want to be able to have this data, because you don't want to go wait. When you go to the pharmacy, you don't want to go wait for your medication to determine, or for them to roll the following day. So having the ability to bring this high volume data was critical, because it's data that actually defines how the business is actually doing. And then we have the low volume data. And this was some of the Excel workbooks that some of the team members were using just to be able to calculate their own personal measures or their own metrics. So different levels of data, and we can be able to have multiple levels here. So that was the high volume and the low volume. And then we brought that, now this is where the medallion architecture came in, because we were looking at this data in as raw as possible. And you have the ability to bring it, whether it's structured, semi-structured, as Martin was mentioning there. You can even be able to bring in your unstructured data, which is why we shine in Lakehouse, because it allows us to be able to bring that data in. So we get that data into our bronze layer, and this is now where we start massaging the data. This is where we do our initial processing. We go ahead and build our pipelines that will allow us to be able to massage the data, be able to transform the data based on what the customer wants, so that we can be able to meet the business needs. And then we transform that data into the silver layer. And then the other thing about the silver layer that was important was that we have the ability to also do what we call mirrors. So there is some level of data, if you don't want to bring it into the pipeline, let's say, for instance, like your SQL Server data, if you have data that sits on Databricks, similar situation, Snowflake, similar situation, where you can be able to create a mirror of that data and be able to feed it off now into your Fabric environment. And then also in the same concept, you have the ability to do, as Dominic was mentioning, the ability to do shortcuts, which is leaving the data where it is but you're able to work with it in Fabric. So the key piece with the shortcuts is that we don't have to do data duplication. So that was the other cool thing about all this. So bring the data into our silver layer. And then after that, we did some further transformation so that we can be able to meet their business needs as well as create the metrics that they may want. And then we pushed that data now into the gold layer. So this becomes our single source of truth. So where most of the folks are actually making business decisions from there. But we do have some people that actually depend also on the silver layer because, like, for instance, they had a team of analysts. They are really not there from data scientist perspective, but they are there from analyst perspective that were actually willing to be tapping into the silver layer so that they can be able to read this data before it actually gets this further transformation to include some of the metrics that drive the business, because it kind of just changes a little bit. So that's where we ended up in the gold layer. Or golden data. And then through all this, we're tracking, Johari, once again, to answer your question here, we're tracking these metrics so that we can be able to determine what we have through the process. And also, it's not a solution that we just handed over to the client and said, okay, here it's good, let's keep going with this one. We wanted to actually have the ability to also continue advising the customer based on the changes that we do see. If we see the metrics spike, that's where Martin comes into picture, because he is our in-house aficionado. I think that's the right word when it comes to tracking and reading these metrics and being able to advise based on the different scenarios that we're seeing with the data. So that's where all that came into picture. And then our data visualization. And then the next key piece that we do have going on for them with that different team here is the machine learning, which also Martin is involved, and some other folks in the house. All right. So that's the initial piece that kind of just gives the overlook layer of what this environment looks like. But I want to dive into some of the few items that we do have, like, for instance, the pipelines here. So these pipelines, it hasn't changed much when you look at what we have in Data Factory, Azure Data Factory versus what we have now in Fabric. That hasn't changed much. We still have our source and our destination. So we have the ability to move data from one place to the next. And one of the pieces here that I did not open that I should is if I go back to my Fabric here, if we look, like, for instance, our streaming data. So this is streaming, not streaming data, but our Data Factory, not Data Factory. I lost my terminologies there. I'll get it here in just a moment. So we have this data coming in from the source, and then we have the ability to navigate it. So this data is actually transforming in flight. As the data changes, we have the ability to see it change in flights. And this one here is our actual streaming data. So I'll show that here in just a moment. So this data, as it comes, we have, this was critically the nursing notes. So when the nurses were out there, they are interacting with the patients and they want to change the patient plan, they were able to change this data, or they were able to create a different plan for the patient and then be able to stream that data in. And actually, I'm going to do a live demo of that. So over here, I have my SQL Server. And this is from our nurses database. So if I look at this record here, I'm gonna make it a little bit bigger. If I look at this record here, I do see that my description here is lifestyle education regarding hypertension. So I'm gonna go ahead and update that record. So go ahead and run this one here. And if I look at that, I will see that now this one has been updated by Amli. Now, what's going to happen is this data will actually flow into my Fabric here in just a moment. So I'll go to my nurses notes here. Let me go ahead and close the data flow here. And that's data flow. Data Fabric data. It's data flow. That's the key term that I wanted to get there. So that data is actually going to be flowing here in just a moment. So I'm going to first of all open my nurses note, and the nurses notes here, this one also allows us to be able to see everything that's going on. I can actually see the transformational process, how long it's taking for my streaming data to come in. So it allows us to see that data as it flows through. So I can see what we're using. I can see the level of the event house size, what we have there, which is not very big at the moment. I can be able to see whether it's running or stopped. I'm actually looking at this from a live view. And if I go here to my nurses notes, have my care plan here. So I'll see this is my record here. So I should have a new record. Let's auto size this. And I can be able to see here the changes that I just did, because I had 3 records prior to this. So this is my record. Go ahead and open it. So I can see that's a care plan artifact that was changed. And I can actually also see what changes were done here. Let me pull that here. Can visualize it here. So it's giving me a lot of information on actually what's happening within the architecture. And the record itself further down, I'm missing it in just a moment. And I can actually also see it from this patient level here on my streaming data as well. This is on my streaming data. Access notes. So there's different areas that I can be able to actually see my data as it gets streamed in. So this is my streaming data. Let's go ahead and see this guy here. Should be data. Data preview, refresh this. I should be able to see that data as it streams through. So you have the ability to capture that. As soon as this one refreshes, we'll be able to see that. And the key thing for them, because they are a larger organization, a lot of data was streaming in, and we can be able to actually be able to see as that data as it changes. So this is the details of what has changed over time. And I am trying to see the most recent record, which I think should be one of those guys. That's not what I want. It's over here somewhere. Yeah, it's over here. So I can be able to actually see that data as it loads. But this is the process of how we actually see that data when it's moving from one place to the next. Now, one of the things that you also notice here is I'm actually using an Azure SQL. So that was the data, that was the application that the customer is using in this, yeah, here's my record that I changed, and I can be able to see exactly what was changed. So I can be able to see what was changed. So they're using an Azure SQL database. So that's because this application needs to be available for them even over the field. So they're not just accessing this within their organization or within internal. So they have the ability to use it outside the organization when they're in the field, when they are visiting some of the patients that are not bedside and such. They have the ability to see that. And then now when we talk about the whole medallion architecture, so this is our lakehouse here that we did build, and we have the ability to bring different data sets. So in this case here, we have bronze schema. And then as Dominic was saying, you have the ability to also upload these files. You can bring data that actually sits within even OneLake, which is our encompassing place where you can be able to create those shortcuts. You can be able to drop the files, and you're able to ingest that data directly. So in OneLake, it's a concept that works almost like the same way that OneDrive works, where you can be able to drop the files and be able to sync them. So that's the other piece that we do have there. And then the other one, now we push that data to the lakehouse, and after the lakehouse, we go ahead and push it to the Gold. And what I wanted to also show, one of the other cool things that we were able to implement for this customer here was the clinical notes. So this clinical notes, this is a notebook that we did write, which is using Python, and it pulls the data from one of their systems where this is all unstructured data that they had in one of their systems, and we are pulling that using the notebooks here. Now, the good thing about using the notebooks is that we were able to, all of us, be able to work on it, be able to share these notebooks, and be able to all of us interact for that continuous integration, continuous development. So rather than waiting for a specific person to complete the data, the process that they want, we can be able to work in this environment, all of us together. So we have the ability to bring all this data in, and I know I'm a little bit rushing because of time, but we were able to bring all this together. Now, once you do all that, then the environment itself also allows you to be able to build, as Martin mentioned there, you're able to build the schema, the semantic schema. So this semantic schema is actually now what's going to allow you to be able to build your Power BI. So the semantic schema has your facts and measures. Once you create your facts and measures based on the database data relationship. So in this case, we have the nurses data, we have the pharmacy data, we have the patient's data. Being able to create that view there together where you can be able to create the facts and dimensions, that's where this comes into picture. And then after that, now you're able to also build your Power BI, and you don't have to build the Power BI within Fabric architecture itself. You can still be able to use your Power BI desktop and be able to connect to the same semantic model. You're able to connect to it as well, so that you can be able to build all your reports that you want to be able to build. So it's a full platform, and with our expertise of what we've seen with other platforms, because we also have Databricks and such, I can say for now, based on what I see, Fabric has a much more full solution, because you have the end-to-end where you can be able to bring data all the way from ingestion to visualization. But when you depend on other applications, like for instance, Databricks, and we are partners on Databricks as well, you still have to think about the layer where you want to do the data visualization. And same thing with a platform like Snowflake, where you have to think of the platform that you will need to use for data visualization. For data ingestion, here we have the Data Factory, which is also part of the solution. But when we go to these other platforms, now you have to start thinking of using third-party tools for you to be able to bring that data in. But they are all great solutions, but I find that Fabric is much more complete solution, being able to drive you from end to end when you're looking from data from discovery all the way to consumption. And then beyond there, you have now the data warehouse, where you can actually also be able to tap in with machine learning and AI, generative AI. So that's what I wanted to show. I'm going to open it up now, put it back to Effie, so that we can open it up for any questions, and hopefully we'll be able to answer your questions.
Thank you, Leonard. That was a compelling story of how we sold Vital Medical Group, and I hope we can partner with you in your data journey. So we are going to open the floor for the Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you can ask or drop them in our chats.
Okay, I had a quick question for Martin. My question is now, really just want to clarify something on the medallion layers, and I want to know why does the data format change across the medallion layers?
Thank you,
I
Sami,
don't
for
know. It was a little bit not audible. I think Mr. Chisiro, the other question was how the data, or what's the role of the medallion architecture, if I got that right. Go ahead, Martin.
Yeah. That's what Piskari was asking. I said in the first layer, which is the bronze layer, we don't change the format of the data because we want to maintain the historical data. And then now when we go to the next layer, which is the silver, we store data in Parquet files and Delta tables. The reason for this is because the Delta tables, when you are querying the data, you are reading the data using the SQL Advent and other Fabric objects. They have high speed. You can read in a very high speed, and also even when you go to the gold layer, we also use the same data, and this increases the speed because the data is optimized when we use the Delta formats and the Parquet files. I hope I've answered your question.
Yeah, that's well answered. Thank you.
And to add a little bit there, this is where the endpoints that Martin is referring to. So we have, you actually be able to see the entire schema of how the data looks compared to this looking, when you're looking to the direct data directly from a lakehouse. You also have the ability to connect to the lakehouse using your SQL Server because it's an endpoint. So you have the ability to absolutely query this directly from your SQL Server Management Studio.
Thank you. So because of time, I think if you have any question, you can drop them to our chat and our team will follow up with their answers after the session. So I hope you found this deep dive into Microsoft Fabric valuable and gain actionable insights to enhance your data solution. So as for now, we are now embarking on building AI solution for their organization, which we'll share how we did in our next event. So thank you, Martin, Leonard, Dominic, and Martin again for such an engaging and insightful discussion. And thank you all for attending. Thank you.